In today's episode of the Adam Ciaccia podcast, I'm speaking with Australian hairdresser Ben Martin. We cover many topics, but none are more important than the one regarding mental health and the struggles that many people are going through. If you're struggling with your mental health, please know that there are many places you can reach out for help. If you need to know what places are available to you, please check the description in this podcast. But now it's time for my chat with Ben Martin. Ben Martin, how you going, man?
Good, thanks, mate. How you doing, Adam? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's good to catch up. I mean, we've been always keeping in contact, like DMs and stuff like that. But this is the first chat we've had in a while, so it's good to talk, man.
Yeah, man. It's actually been a few years since we've actually had a chat at all, which has been good. So it's nice to finally connect off the Instagram.
Yeah, that's right. I guess DMs and messages is a way that busy people communicate as impersonal as it can be at times.
Yeah.
So what have you been up to, brother? You told me you earlier today you're working on some mentoring. Tell us about that. What's going on?
Yeah. So I wanted to do some. Look, I never obviously, we both like doing collection sort of hairdressing and stuff as well. We sort of creative outlet. So I never came from a hair salon that ever did that. Like I trained in rural Victoria. When I moved to Melbourne, I wasn't in the salon that was doing that. Never had that opportunity. Went off to London, came back, and then I wanted to get into that sort of hairdressing. So why I've created a mentor program is for apprentices in the same sort of situation that don't have somebody to talk to. They're not in a hair salon that's doing that kind of stuff. They can talk to me, ask advice, share their ideas. So even things like what competitions to enter, what's available, how long do you get out of a collection, So, and the other things you can do with your collection as well. So I just wanted to provide a mentor program for people like that. I think that, and doing it without any cost involved, I think is helpful for the apprentices in the industry. Because obviously, you want to see that sort of creativity and collection hairdressing still going in the future.
Yeah, it seems to be collections are an interesting thing. I've always wondered how relevant it is. Michelle and I, my wife, I don't know if you've met my wife, Michelle, we sat down and had a bit of an audit about the collections that I'd shot over the years, and we were heading close to $250,000 in 12 years. And I was horrified. And I'm not sure whether it's I think it's had a neutral effect on our business. I think I always did it personally. I remember the reason why I started shooting collections is I had a conversation with a couple of random hairdressers at a hair expo once, and they said, "Oh yeah, I heard you're really busy and you got a clientele, but you haven't won anything." I'm like, "What?" It's like, "You haven't won anything." I didn't actually know what they meant, and then I worked out, I was only going to get respect from the industry if I actually won awards. So that's really, I don't know if it played on my ego a little bit. That's sort of why I started, but I'm not sure whether, given like I've seen the collections you do, and honestly, they're way better than what I've ever done. I don't have a very broad skill set, but I don't know whether I could put them on my window to attract business because they are quite sort of like the way that awards are now. They are very avant-garde, and I'm being in a commercial, like conservative town like Canberra. I've got to be very careful about like sort of image we portray. So yeah, we've not really ever used them to market our business.
Look, I totally get what you're saying. To be honest, I don't use them to market my daily hair salon business. My clients are a part of it. Like when they come in, I'll be working on looks in the salon, and they'll come out the back and have a look, and they like to be involved in the process. I don't use them to drum up like everyday salon business. As I said, my clients like to be part of it, but I had to get to the place where I was doing it. It's just a creative outlet for me. Like I love being in the salon. Like that's the best part of being a hairdresser. You see these people who've got some clients for 20 years. It's just like hanging out with friends. That's your job. That's the best part of it. But as you said, like I don't use it to build up like my clientele. I don't use it for advertising. I just use it as just a creative outlet.
which is why I did it, because I'm focused on doing commercial work, which I love doing, but sometimes if that's the only stuff you do, it could actually really bottleneck your skill set. So I needed an outlet to keep that sort of creative juices flowing.
Yeah,
But
and that's what I
mate,
mean.
$250,000, we could spend
That's
that
a
on a
lot of
lot of
money,
things too.
right?
Yeah, that's a lot. It's like, it's about, what's that, 18,000? Yeah, just don't remind me. It's about what, 18 grand a year over 12 years. That's a lot. But in the early days, I was doing 2 shoots for that, and as you're well aware, you need about 20K to do a decent one these days.
Well, look, that being said,
Or not.
no, I don't think so. I think if you use certain parts that you put together with your photo shoot, if you believe that you have to do what everybody else is doing, then you're going to have an incredibly expensive shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess you're right.
like,
It's just the production is not a cheap thing to undertake, right? So, Canberra,
yeah,
again, like I generally apply to Sydney, so I've got access to a bigger pool of models. Professional models I've used non sort of full-time professional models before, and I've had sort of reasonable success with that. But I had one bad experience where I just did some amazing work, and an unexperienced model put her on set, and yeah, she just froze, and it just really destroyed the day. So I never took that risk again.
look, I think we've all had that where you pay for a good model, and well, even if you pay for a good model, I've paid. I remember a couple of years ago, the most expensive model I had was the one that we got the lead for Adam.
Yeah, that's happened to me too.
Yeah, so it can be.
What do you think? What do you think? What's happening with awards anyway? Like, there seems to be like a sort of like the older guard, like me, sort of step back. I mean, I had a good run. I finaled in Australian Hairdressers of the Year 3 years in a row, and I just sort of looked at where Australian Hairdressers of the Year was sitting, and I had to take a step back and say, you know what, I just don't have the skill set to compete in that avant-garde space, and I'm actually okay with that. So yeah, I just see this like new wave of people coming through, which is actually quite exciting. Sick of seeing the old same bastards around like me all the time,
Yeah, but it's also like sometimes you just gotta. Sometimes you might need to step away, and then recalibrate. It's like anything, even with your business. You know what I mean? You got to go. You're doing something, and then you step away and you recalibrate. I mean, my first few collections, 18, 19, 20, 20, they are so different than what I'm doing now. Like, so different. And this is what I was talking to the guys about in the mentor program. Like, I used to do what I thought other people wanted me to do so I could win. Right? So I thought, I'm going to do these collections because this is what I see the industry doing. And that's how, but then I've found in the last 2 years, the most success I've had is just doing collections that are just freedom of expression. It's like you have to get to the point where it's not about winning. It has to just be about, I want to produce a collection and express. And that's just what you've got to find, the joy in the process rather than what you perceive to be the end game. I mean, I know from the scoring that was provided last when I was up for Australian, that mine was the lowest scoring collection out of all of it.
Yeah, right. Out of how many?
Out of, I think, 10 finalists for Australian
Hairdressing. Was that in the AHIA or AHFA?
AHFA.
Yeah. And what's your thoughts on that, actually? What's your thoughts on that? Like, I see there seems to be this, you're either AHIA or you're AHFA. What's your thoughts? You can see that this is really, like, I think we should talk about it, because I'm just like, purely, I can't afford to enter two award platforms. That's it. And I'm like, I've sort of got the runs on the board with the AHFA. So it's not like I think, AHIA is second division or first division, or it's a lesser award or whatever. It's purely economics for me. But do you agree? There seems to be this, like, you're either one way or the other.
Look, because I won the 2023 AHFA for Victorian, then followed the rules where I chose different shots. I submitted in colour, so I used black and white. So that was in the rules. Well, then chose two different looks, and then won the 2024 AHIA Victorian. So that was at the same time. So look, I definitely did not think that I was winning the AHIA because I've won the AHFA, and obviously, as you said, they don't join.
Yeah.
I would honestly like to see them both just open up. Like, Australia is really odd in that you have to submit collections that are unseen, and not only that, they're kind of hindering us by not allowing us to compete across two platforms. And
Yeah.
then who's
I think that's a fair point.
Who's the real Australian?
Yeah.
Who's
Well,
Australian?
maybe it needs to be like a conference setup where you have two conferences, and then the winning collections in each, you know, what would you call them? Division. You know, you got the WBC and the WBA.
Yeah.
They come together, and then they ended up having an independent
think
panel of judges
whichever
saying
one of-
this is the Australian, because it just diminishes from each thing. It's like, who is Australian Hairdresser of the Year?
Well, I was actually having a conversation with somebody about this the other day. Whichever one of them.
A lot of
opens
people are
up
having
first-
conversations about this. This is why I brought it up.
Well,
A lot of
so
people are talking about it, man.
If whichever one opens up to everybody first will be the definitive Australian Hairdresser of the Year. So if you can.
How do you mean open up? Define open up, Ben.
So, like, let's just say if AHIA was to say that any collection submitted to the AHFA is still valid for submission into the AHIA Australian of the Year. So then you're going to have that
I
pool
understand.
will open up. Because at the moment, it's like if you've done this, you have to produce a new collection. If they just said you can still submit these collections, then you're going to know who's going to win. And then realistically, the other trophy loses so much credibility because whichever one opens up first becomes the true Australian Hairdresser of the Year because it has the broadest amount of entry. So whichever one of them open up first. And as I said, it's weird because after I won, they actually changed the rules. So when I won AHFA, then AHIA changed the rules that it has to be a completely new collection.
Right. I remember that happened to me at Hair Expo. I won AHFA New South Wales Hairdresser of the Year in 2012, and then it was a long time between drinks, and I won it again in 2018. But the year I won it in the AHFA, one of the collections wasn't an individual, but because obviously there's a lot of collections. One of the collections that was in the AHFA that I beat resubmitted that same collection in the Hair Expo. I shot a new one and they won with that collection. So is that what you mean? You should be able to use your collection wherever you like?
You should have been able to use the collection that won AHFA in the AHIA and vice versa. They should allow it, because then you're going to find out who the real winner is.
And then sort of defeats the purpose of having two competitions. It'd be nice to see them have their own events if they wanted to have educational events. And I know the AHIA got business awards, so that's sort of unique to them. But it'd be good to see them just come together and be able to have one big event, because ultimately it's sort of like
they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to do that.
No, I think we can agree on that.
I think whoever pulls the trigger first and opens it up, they're going to become the premier award, because it's the true Australian Hairdresser of the Year. It's the true Victorian Hairdresser of the Year. It's the true, because you're allowing everybody to compete.
I understand what you're saying. I understand, because then if you enter AHFA and I don't, then, or vice versa, I'd be like, well, if Ben Martin had entered, he may have beaten me, and I guess I'll never know.
Exactly.
Is that what you mean? Yeah, okay, right.
It's also that also means that from a business perspective, you're going to get way more entry fees.
And you're going to get more mileage out of your collection as an artist.
100%.
Because let's be honest, they're laboriously time-consuming to create. I mean, just the process of coming up with the story you want to tell is, for me, it's about sort of 6-8 weeks. And my wife says to me all the time, I hate that time of year. You become so, recluse and disconnected from us, and you're very sort of quiet. I've always really had a hard time taking my mind to that creative space, because I'm very, very conventional like that. So she's never thrilled when I say I'm going to do it. I actually was going to give it a crack this year, but I think I've left it a little bit late because my education schedule is so crazy busy that I'm just not going to be able to fit it in. One of the things I
Yeah.
used to not do very well is take a chunk of time off to prepare my looks and then days to shoot them. I used to prepare them and shoot them all in 2 days, which, I mean, obviously I'm doing work prior to those 2 days, but actually have a whole week where I'm just like, get it all together and then shoot it at the end of that week or the beginning of the next week.
See, I just talk about it. I've got a friend, Lindsay Olsen, in the States. She's a red artist. And we talk about this, like, just bandwidth when it comes to hairdressing, right? Before COVID, I was educating internationally for Redken, domestically, shooting collections, doing editorial. I spread myself too thin. So I also found that you have enough. And now I don't do a lot of that. So I find I'm in my most creative space now because I've narrowed in my bandwidth. I run my salon and I love that. And I do creative collections and I love that. And I think, as you said about education, you can't do it all. That's one thing I learned, and I lost it all. Like, we've had this discussion during COVID. I lost everything.
We'll get into that. We'll
Yeah,
get into that.
but what it's allowed me to do is rebuild. And I go, right now, and this is why I've introduced mentoring, because it's like, I do love education, but I don't think I can run my salon look really well, enter hair collections and do education and be doing my best at all of them.
Yeah.
So, but with my collections, I mean, I was saying to the guys this morning, I start in January. I start making it, like, you can't see my dining table, but it's an 8-seater. From this side of the computer to that way, there's four looks on the table and one standing on a mannequin head. I make them at home, but I get my kids involved.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter's heavily involved. She's very, I think this is better like this, which is good. But it also, I take my time. So I make them for about 6 months. Just so I start the process and I start with one, like a concept, and then I'll have a technique that I want to apply to that. And then I just find they follow on. And having that time also gives me, you said about pressure and time constraint. I find just allowing it to flow for 6 months makes me very happy with what I'm doing. I don't feel any pressure. Like, I'm shooting next weekend. Next weekend? Yeah, I think next weekend. And I don't feel any pressure at all. Like,
yeah, I never felt pressure when I'm shooting collections.
But just, I mean, even maybe just getting in the early days I did. I'm like, you know what? But then you go through imposter syndrome. You know what that's like. You're like, I think this is shit.
Yeah, I've actually found the best work I've done has always been when I have like a pretty, solid idea of what it is I'm going to do, but I actually give myself space to be able to, like, make the looks malleable. So it's like I'm not locked into a particular look. And then I find that the more I prepare and the more I think about it, I'm an overthinker. I'd say the best collection I ever did was coming out of COVID. In fact, I wasn't going to shoot because the borders were closed. I couldn't do it. And then they reopened the New South Wales ACT border, and I called David and I said, I actually think that I'm going to be able to come over the border to Sydney. Do you have like 3 haircut models up there? So I had like maybe I had 3 girls that I could cut their hair, and I had 3 girls who I could put wigs on and cut their hair. And I literally, I coloured their hair. I took my assistant, now business partner, Jordan, with me, and I literally did their hair all on the day. So I did their hair on the day, cut and coloured their hair on the day, and shot it on the day. And it was that was when I last finaled in Australian Hairdresser of the Year. And you touched on it before. It's the first time I've stepped back and looked at a collection. I'm like, that screams Adam Ciaccia. I'm happy with that. Now, it might not have been anything groundbreaking. It might not have been pushing boundaries, but I always felt like I'm trying to find or reinvent what is actually seems to be rewarded by the judges, which you never know. I mean, it's like one year they say we want to see more real hair, and then the people that win are using hair pieces and wigs, and you're just like, well, hang on a minute, like, you say you want more real hair, and now it's like wigs and hair pieces. So I was just like, you know what? I had 1 wig in the entire collection, and yeah, it was really, really good, and it was the least amount of prep I ever did. So I don't know. I'm not there's a mood board trend. I'm not a mood board person. I'm not a storyboarding stuff. Like, I'm like, what? I can't get what's in here out onto something and articulate that to people. That's madness. It confuses me half the time. Like it's chaos in there. I'm telling you,
Oh,
it's not audible at all.
dude, I'm terrible. Like, as in, because I usually work with the same team, and because I only shoot with the same team over the last few years. I don't even. The good thing for me is I don't have to articulate. You're talking about movement to the makeup artist or the stylist or the photographer. I just go,
Yep,
you do what you do. I'm going to do what I do, and we're all going to come
100%.
together on the day, and we're just going to see how it works out. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Your
um,
stuff was beautiful. I saw the one you did in was it did you enter the One Shot Hair Awards? Did I see it pop
yeah,
up on
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Mate,
yeah.
that's beautiful. When did you do that?
The one shot the one shot looks a part of my collection from that was up for Australian for AHFA last year.
Nice. And did you
So
actually get scores from AHFA last year?
yeah. So you got feedback, and then so you got she gave you your score, and then the median, like the average. So just doing mathematically, yeah. Like, this is the thing.
I,
You have to get to a point where other people's opinions don't matter because you have to, as you said, you'll have to scream Adam Ciaccia. I feel that I've moved into a place where my collections are me and they're mine.
mm,
Some people do cut and color, and that's beautiful, but that's not how my head works. I work in styling, and that's what I
hmm
teach. So I'm like, well, let's just do me. You know what I mean? Which is styling. I tried all that cut and color stuff, and it just didn't feel authentic as me.
yeah,
Because that's, even though I love doing it, that's not the medium that I like to do it in, and other
yeah,
people do. And obviously, the collections are beautiful, but that's just not for me. And when I kind of became true to what how I want to express myself, I found more joy in it. And as you said, like, I've just got to stop caring what people think. But yeah, based on the median scores, yeah, 100%, I came last.
yeah.
Oh,
I think I've got feedback a couple of times, and it's like, you see a few things. Yeah, nice work, buddy. Really love this collection, man. It's like,
don't read it.
what's that?
Don't read it. I would never read
No,
it again.
no. I think it's pointless, and I'm not being critical to the judges. They give their
No,
time, and
no,
I
no.
do respect
It's
their feedback.
personal.
But feedback, if like I don't know. I actually think that the judging process should be. You know what I'd like to see? I'd like to see. I'd like to see video content created of the judging process, so we can actually see after. So that's the best feedback you can give an artist is like like they could have Ben Martin here, Adam Ciaccia there, Renyasitis there, like all the finalists. And then at each collection, there's a GoPro. And as the person comes up to judge it, it's bang. And I want real time, like photo by photo or image by image, thoughts shared with me, critiquing it. And I don't want it to be filtered. I want it to be direct because I'm, as you know, I think you're the same. I'm a very unfiltered, direct
Yeah,
sort of
just
guy.
telling the truth. Yeah.
And that way, that is the best gift you could give to an artist afterwards. I want to hear them articulate what they're feeling in the moment, not in words. I don't want this because at the end of the day, it's a big job, massive job. There's heaps of collections. You really want them to sit there. I mean, they're hairdressers, most of them. You really want them sitting there typing on a keyboard, or that's not. I reckon
I mean,
video
even
feedback
if it
from
was a
judges would be
voice memo,
amazing.
even if it was a voice
Voice
memo,
memo, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, you get a voice memo for each pick, and you're like, and they're just holding their phone, and they're like, this is what I feel about this picture. This is what it's doing for me. I love that you've done this. I feel this could have been better. And then you can just click on it in feedback, and you get, like, not somebody's written words, but the way that they talk, and you get
Mm.
real feedback. But also letting know which, if you've got the judges, well, what did each judge score each collection?
Yep.
That kind of transparency is important too. You know what I mean? Like, what did
Do you
each
think?
judge
Do you think
score?
there's any? Do you think there's any bias? Do you think it could be influenced the judging process? Can
Mate.
I tell you a couple of stories?
Sure.
Let me tell you a couple of yarns. So This is before COVID. I'm in Brisbane and I'm at an event there working for Matrix, and someone comes up to me and says, "Man, I love your collection." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like, "Have you seen my collection?" No one's seen it. And they're like, oh shit. Like, I'm not going to name names, but this person had basically been sent photos of my collection from one of the people who was judging it. And like I hear all the time, there's this insinuation that maybe they can be bought. But one of the things that I know for sure, and I'm not for a minute questioning the integrity of any awards, but I can only share my real world experiences. So the year I won New South Wales Hairdresser of the Year for the second time, I went up the day before. I think my wife had gone to her parents, and they live in Western Sydney. So we went up together, and then I went and checked myself into a hotel, and I got invited out to dinner with David Manner and Errol Douglas. Now, other than two collections, David Manner, there's no secret, we are good friends, and he's taught me a lot about shooting. And I don't shoot with him because he's a mate or I think I get any leverage. I shoot it because he's like me and he's uncomfortably honest with me. Like, I had him march a world famous model on set once. He turned to me he said, "Adam, I'm really sorry, but I think we're done here." And I'm like, "What are you talking about, mate? We're done. Like, she's been here like 2 minutes." He goes, "We need to move on." And that's what you pay for. I pay for someone who's just going to tell me what I don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he's taught me a lot about shoots. But anyway, so Errol Douglas, him and I go out to dinner in Surrey Hills the night before the awards, and we get him maggoted. And Errol, may God strike me dead. Errol Douglas says to him, "Come on, David, tell us who won." Now, he's sitting next to me. If he knows who wins, he's already known that I've won New South Wales Hairdresser of the Year. He's like, "I don't know. I don't know who won. Jamil tells me nothing. Stop. I don't know. Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you, but I don't know." So that is that point. That's at the point I knew, because he could have said, "Adam, bring your videographer up tomorrow. You're going to win. Like, make a thing of it. Bring your wife, because you're going to win." Like, there was so many opportunities for wholesome, good reasons. He could have said, "Look, you won, so bring it up." And he told me, and Jamil and other people have confirmed it, he gets told when the event starts. So he only knows the winners when he arrives at the gala. So it's like, when people say that, "Oh, you shoot with David," I know why you shoot with David. I had someone say, and I won't swear on this because it'll get blocked on YouTube, but he goes, "Oh, so are you sucking at the moment so you can try and win?" I'm like, "What did you just say to me?" We're in the bathroom. I was ready to punch on at the AHFA. It's like, I don't have a great temper. So I know there's some insinuations that people are potentially rigging these things, but do you actually think that that's possible for these awards to be bought? I don't think it is.
Not really. Do you know what I've learned? I think that people like to make excuses for why they don't win rather than going again. Yeah.
Yep.
And you know what? If you're really, really honest with yourself as an artist, you have to be like, "You know what? Like, the people I'm competing with are the best, right? We're at the top. One of us is just going to have something in the collection the other one's not." And I think what can happen is people then make up an excuse. "Oh, I didn't win because you shot with this person. Or I didn't win because you
Yeah.
shot." Well, I won, and I haven't used David or Andrew. Do you know what I mean? It's like, but I also had to be honest with myself. My first two collections, they were good, but they weren't winning collections. And if I break them down, I go like, "Be honest. You could have done better." It has nothing to do. My editing wasn't good enough. My angles weren't good enough. Like, all that kind of stuff. And I don't think a lot of people have enough discipline to self-reflect and just go, "Do you know what? My collection just wasn't the best." So what they're going to do is they're going to make an excuse for why they didn't win.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
Yeah, I've always been pretty honest and transparent with myself, but yeah, I don't think it serves any purpose. And I understand that, it's when you pour your heart out into these collections, and park the money aside, but it is an expression of oneself, and I can understand how people can be hurt by that. And I just think it defaults to like, yeah, me too. I think it could default to like trying to like sort of buffer that pain a little bit by like, "Oh, whatever the excuse might be." But I've always been like, come back and I look at them like, the collection I did last, that I actually entered into one shot as well. I looked at it and I had it, and David said to me, he goes, look, man, I can be honest with you, when we were looking at the photos in the end, he goes, we've got some really good stuff here, but Adam, I'm not sure whether it's your strongest work. And I said, come on, man, you can be honest, it's far from it. And I still don't know where it went wrong, because I actually, again, maybe it comes down to what I said before, I prepped really good. Maybe I prepped too much. And so I chose, rather than to make an excuse, and I don't know if this is like not a good thing, but I'll be honest, I decided not to enter it in Australian. I was like, it's just not good enough. So I entered it in colorist, and I entered it in a couple other things, and then just used it. I said, if I don't enter it in all these competitions, I might use it in something else. And I just limited the amount that I published it, because I actually just didn't like it. There were like 2 or 3 good, really fucking strong images, and then the rest were just shit. I just don't know what happened. Halfway through the day, something happened, and I just wasn't in the mood, and I just have to take accountability. I mean, I'm a 46-year-old man. It's no one else's fault but mine. But yeah, I think I was like that when I was younger. I used to say, oh, it's rigged, or, these people are paying people, but it's just not the case.
No.
I know for fact it's not. I know for fact from that night, Errol Douglas, myself, and David, there were so many reasons why he probably should have told me, because it was the only time my wife hadn't come. She could have left her with my mother-in-law in Sydney and could have come to the gala, and actually won. She wasn't there. So
yeah, but look, I mean, in the mentoring thing, I've actually reached out to Errol, and I sent him some questions, and he was incredible and wrote me a very, amazing response via email to the questions I had, so I could share experiences with apprentices. And Errol pointed something out that I wasn't aware of. Errol's been nominated for 29 years in a row for British Hairdresser and never won.
wow.
Yeah. But without fail every year. So
Has anyone ever entered once and won?
I don't know.
Sure there
But
has
the
been.
thing is like, you kind of got to go, but he does it for the passion of the art.
Mm.
You know what
That's
I mean?
inspiring, actually.
Yeah, and
That's
you go
inspirational.
like, hey man, but you don't have, look, as I said, like, I didn't win last year, but I was there. And then my collection since then has had amazing traction, like globally in publications. I'm pretty sure it's been published in every major publication now. Aesthetica was the last one. And then you
Amazing.
go like, but it's also like, I just want to share my collection. That's it.
Mm.
And you are going to get, some people are just going to ride on your Instagram. I get that. Oh, a hair collection with not much hair. It's like, I just ignore that now.
That just shows that
because,
they're naive as an artist, mate. That's all.
yeah, and you just kind of got to go like, no, I want to produce a collection. I really enjoy the process, and I want to share it with people. And art is subjective. Some people are going to like it. Some people are not going to like it. But that's okay.
The only thing that I hope, Ben, and it's going to lead us into our next thing I want to talk to you about, is I hope that the actual judging process, well, the photos, is done with anonymity, to the point that someone's personal feelings towards somebody doesn't have any effect on them, because I think that's really shit if that's the case. And I have heard things in the past that, your stature or your reputation has a lot of bearing, and I'm just like, why is that the case? It's like I took offense to one of the questions in an awards platform about asking if I work with charities and if there's any financial amount with that.
Yeah.
And I just wrote NA, because I don't think that the fact that I contribute, prior to COVID, we were doing a lot more, but one of the things I'm very passionate about is women and children that live in cars. So there's a charity in Canberra that we worked with for a long time called Carina House, and my wife and my sister and I got involved with that a long time ago, but we just didn't have the funds during that. But I'm not going to say that, I don't want to put a number on it, but it wasn't a little bit, it was substantial. I'm not want to put that in there and think that someone who's a better artist than me loses because of that. I just thought that that's why I like the AHFAs. It was just like, it was judged on the photos, no written submission, and you better bring A game, Ciaccia, because some 19-year-old can kick your ass. And I love that.
Look,
That's what I loved about it.
But see, that actually does have that now. Like the written component does include that. I had that because it asked, and I donate to a charity, the Alana and Madeline Foundation, which is about children and stuff who are victims of domestic violence. I don't post that on my social media. I think, and I also don't. Yeah, I just don't. That's something I like to do privately.
I agree.
I do find I do think it's an interesting. It's the best way to describe it. Question. I don't see its relevance to the core of what it is the competition is, which is a hairdressing collection. Yeah, I do find that interesting, that question, but obviously we have to fill that out. But also, yeah, I do think that it should be just about the collection. And as you said, anybody can kick your ass. Somebody can just swing for the fucking hills and bat 100 and then they kill it. Do you know what I mean? So that can happen.
And that's excitement about it. Because if you're going to actually have a written submission in Australian Hairdresser, I think the questions then need to be considered that, okay, well, do you employ people? Have you been running an ethical, successful business? Do you have education history? Are you giving back to the industry? I think that they're probably more relevant questions than Adam Ciaccia, do you donate money to charity?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean,
it's like I can win Australian Hairdresser here and not pay people super and underpay them and not have an ethical business and not sustainable business. And well, I'm just saying, and I'm not being critical of anyone. Like I'm not judging anyone because no one's businesses are perfect. Like there's no one's business are perfect. We've all got challenges in business, but it's like some of those questions in those awards paper. I remember the Hair Expo one, mate. It used to give me anxiety. Like it was like a thesis.
Yeah.
Providing financial records of your business. Like what?
See, I never saw that, but that would be, I don't see the relevance of that. And then again, if you look across every other global hairdressing award, there is no written component.
I don't think there should be.
You may be asked for is like that press kit bit, and it's sort of
that's different.
And you go like,
that's different.
That makes sense because you send that out in the magazine.
Yeah, like a press pack, and maybe like a blurb on your inspiration and why you decided to do this type of collection and whatever. But I just think that it actually it doesn't really make for an even playing field when it comes to younger artists who don't have the ability to do some of those things or don't have the runs on the board. And that's why I always enter the AHFAs. And look, I've said this to Jamil. I don't talk about that stuff with my photographer. I just don't think that's relevant. I talk to the people who run the awards, and they said we took this stance because we just felt that it was necessary. And I said, I respect that. And back in the day, there used to be like, well, you couldn't enter Australian Hairdresser of the Year unless you'd finaled in your state 3 times or won your state at least once.
Yep.
That was the only sort of like restriction in doing it. So, before we move on for collections, do you have multiple people assist you to create and like assemble your looks on the day?
I don't have. See, I put my collection together and it's only me.
Yeah,
like I make everything. I don't
have
a team. I have a guy in the last couple of years, I've had, so there'll be like a young up and coming hairdresser that wants to look at it. They'll come and assist on the day, but it's not, I tend to do the work. It's just kind of like, can you help me put this on, that kind of stuff. So when I make everything's made by my hand. I just like that process. And then, on the day, Dennis. So Dennis came with me last year. He'll come with me again this year. And he's looking to get into this. So I'm just offering him the experience to see how it goes.
Yep. What I'm talking about is I've been told that people actually, let's say, for example, and I'm just going to use some hairdressers that I know and I love, that I've worked with many times. So it'd be like me doing a collection and getting Stevie English, Kobe Boxish, Matt Johnson and Sam James to come and actually help me do the hair on the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that there's people actually employ, and I'm not saying that it's wrong or right, I just want to know what your process is, because similar to you, I bring people from my team, because the reality is if you're got, say, 5 models and you want to create 2 different looks on each model, which David reckons I'm bonkers, because most of the time I have 4 to 5 models and 2, maybe 3 looks for each one. And
That's
so
what
I
I
bring a couple of people from the salon who I've sort of had a chat to about what we're going to do, and we have a bit of a run sheet, and then they help me with the prep, because you need to be there with the photographer to make sure that you're getting the images you want. But I've heard of actually entire world-class teams actually assisting people, and I'm not saying it's bad. I actually just get jealous. I don't know if they've got friends that do it for free or they've got deep pockets, but paying big names like that to come and help you out, it would be an amazing learning experience, and I've always been open to learning from everyone, but it certainly makes it for a even tougher playing field than what I would have anticipated.
I've done it for someone.
Yeah, I've been asked to do it for people too, and I'm happy to do it. I won't take their money. I'm like,
Yeah,
why would you want me to come and help you?
I did it for an international.
Yep.
Somebody called me and I went and did it. I got paid. So that's because
Apparently it's common practice. Well, maybe I'm going to give Ben Martin a call next time I shoot.
I've only done it once. I've only done it once, right? And I would probably, it'd be difficult for me to, actually, I've done it twice. Difficult for me to do it again, because it doesn't sit well with me when somebody's showcasing work that I know they didn't do to be there.
But that's everywhere, right?
They accept the fanfare for the work without the acknowledgement that they didn't get there. That's just how I am as a person, and that's just I don't care if other people do it. For me, it's just like I don't think. Yeah, it's like to see somebody.
Would you say that the majority of the work's been done when you actually sit down and plan your collection, you design your looks, you have the vision? Is it in the actual construction of the theme and the story you're telling is where the actual real work's done? It's almost like you have an architect, you have a builder, and then the builder employs tradespeople, a tiler, a brickie, a painter. Who gets the credit for building the house? It's the builder, right?
Yeah, but it's also like if you are taking, for me, if you're taking the fanfare for something that you didn't have the skills to do, like if you don't have those actual skills, I think you should probably either learn those skills or operate within your spectrum of skills. To be putting it out there that your skill set is this and really it's not, I don't know. It's just something I could never do personally.
Just something that was suggested to me might be worth considering.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things. It's like,
then I'm just a project manager, though.
Those skills. You should have.
You're just like a project manager if you do that. Yeah, I should learn those skills, but I'm a bit tired. I'm starting to you can teach an old dog new tricks, but I'm just like, you know what? It goes back to. I remember Kobe invited me to watch him assemble one of his collections once, and I said to him, and he won't mind me saying this. I go, are you taking like DMT or are you dropping like your microdosing mushrooms or something? Like, how do you get your mind to that place? That is fucking incredible. Like, how do you find yourself and your mind festering and cultivating this creativity where you actually are using like multiple different mediums that you create your own wig from scratch, incorporating different materials? Like, man, my brain just doesn't work like that. They named me a long time. They nicknamed me Matrix the Architect because I've never thought I was creative. I need mathematics to survive. So everything I do is based on geometry. And once I got my foundation, then I sort of let loose a little bit with texture and I personalize stuff. But man, everything's got to go somewhere. Everything belongs somewhere. It's just like how my head works.
Well, that's just look. I always thought like that too, like just very logical thinking. Like, no, these are the foundation rules. This is what I apply, and then I can break them to express creativity with them. What you said about probably microdosing,
I haven't done that for a long
Yeah,
time.
dude.
But I'll tell you
what
what.
I found for me is probably microdosing when it turned for me was like THC, like edibles. That definitely helped.
Yep. Maybe we should edit a bit. We might edit that bit out.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, but not a lot. But look, ever since I'd ever taken that, which I was always terrified to take, I found that I had a new creativity that I could not explain.
Have you ever done like ayahuasca?
Oh, I said no, no. You
The
need to
reason why I
think
asked about
about it.
ayahuasca because I've had, I think it is common. I mean, I'm a bit, I mean, I don't even drink alcohol, so don't judge me. But maybe it's because I drank far too much when I was younger. But I've recently had a lot of chats with my clients. Like I had this client come in, she would be mid-60s, and her kids had grown up, moved out of home, and she went to a retreat in the Blue Mountains where she, for the first time, did ayahuasca with a shaman, and she told me that it's completely changed her life. Like she is convinced now that there is somewhere where we go from this world, that we aren't alone, that there are parallel universes. I'm like, whoa, whoa, and it was heavy because this is a professional woman with multiple PhDs at the
Yep.
end of her career who says this has opened my mind to things that she believes that life has potentially conditioned us to not see or not think about anymore. So
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
why
a
I
lot
dropped
of
that one on
people,
you because it was recent. It was recent. It was
a
just
lot of
actually
people
on
who do
Friday.
that, they talk. It's like a peek behind the veil. Like ayahuasca is like a peek behind the veil, where you're like, this is look, yeah, this is way bigger than the narrow spectrum in which I've viewed everything for the last God knows how many years. Yeah, like you hear a lot of people who try like DMT and stuff like that, and it's like,
Yeah, I think it's for like emotional purge, right? A lot of people
yeah,
who spin
and
up
what
emotional
they
trauma
also
and
a
things like
lot of
that.
people say who take it is that it checks your ego because you become aware exactly how, and the peek behind the veil lets you see how really insignificant in comparison to the entirety of the universe that we are,
Mm.
and that we only operate in one plane, and there may be multiple.
Well, I don't think it's any different to like your creative process. I mean, I'm sure people have their opinions on it. I'm really scared, but I know of people who will. No, and I'm not saying that there's a systematic issue of substance abuse or drug use, or people could have their opinions about that in our industry, but it's no different to people kicking back on a Friday night, having a glass of wine and reading a book. I know of people who have a glass of wine while they're making their collections and things like that. So I think it's like, if that's a
Yeah,
part of
oh
the
mate,
process and it
look at
helps,
all the
like
old. Go back to
kudos to you,
like Bob Marley when they were on absinthe making. You know what I mean? Like nobody was. All the great artists when nobody was sober. Like
Yep,
I sit
yep.
down with a Guinness. I've got pictures like when you're doing your process now, you sort of document it with doing so many videos of my looks while I'm doing it. There's a pint of Guinness next to it while I'm putting them together. Like, 'cause it's
Yeah, it's
like
not, I don't see a problem with that.
relax, can help you relax, but it's also, as I said, like go back to Montmartre, like absinthe and all that kind of stuff, and all the great art was coming out. Everybody was, you know, using a bit of social lubrication, but oh, look, it's
Yep,
also, and some people don't. Everybody just got a process, and I think
yeah.
people get too caught up in like, should my process be their process? It's like just find your own. You'll be all right. Right.
Yeah, I agree. It seems to be the case with Ciaccia that every time I have alcohol in my life, I could put it down to the greatest F ups in my life. And I haven't, knock on wood, I've never been done drink driving. I've never been charged of a crime, but all the times I've proverbially put my foot in the bucket
Mm-hmm.
have been while consuming alcohol, just like during COVID, right? We all know what
Yep.
happened there.
Yeah. I mean, look, you would rarely see me drink at the awards.
Yep.
Yeah, because I'm like, that's work. And I've seen too many people's careers come crashing down due to overconsumption and Dutch courage in a workup. Just on it can be at the awards, it can be on retreats, stuff like that.
Yep.
I've seen product reps.
That's not it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen somebody weed on a client. Like that was.
Oof.
Yeah.
No names.
Yeah.
Damn,
No,
that's. Yeah. Look,
that was pretty crazy.
I've been pretty drunk, but I don't think I've ever thought about urinating on another human.
It was on a boat.
Damn.
No, it was on a boat. They thought they'd pee off the back of a moving boat.
Oh, right. I thought you meant they were weeing on someone.
No, they just didn't wheel. I mean, I'm sure that's happened, but I think I'm sure we've all, without names, we've all witnessed people who were peers who took a mighty fall from grace due to excessive consumption of alcohol or drugs at a work event.
Yeah.
So,
Well, look, I almost did during COVID. I mean, I don't really need. Well, we can go and may as well go into it. Like I think there was a lot going on. We're stuck at home. I wouldn't say I was drinking excessively, but I was.
regular.
Well, yeah, I was drinking excessively, and the result was a part of my personality which I think is repulsive and disgusting, and got me into a little bit of hot water during COVID. I mean, I publicly apologized to that person on many occasions, and that was actually from that moment. I don't know if I ever told anyone this, but that was when I made the decision to abstain from alcohol, period. I just don't drink at all. So the extent of my drinking will be my father comes home over on a Sunday, maybe once a month, make a nice plate of pasta. I'll go down to the cellar. I'll grab a nice, 20-year-old bottle of wine. We'll crack it and, pour a glass. And so I looked at it with my dad and he says Centandi, which means, 100 years of health. And I might have a glass with a plate of pasta, but for me, that's eating. But during COVID, I saw a side of myself. I was like, this is disgusting, and it's just not who I am, and resulted in, it was. Look, I look back on it now, and I'm not ashamed of anything. Well, I am ashamed of some things that I've done. I'm ashamed of that, but it's made me the person I am. And if it wasn't for that moment during that period, and me looking back at my behaviour and realizing how repulsive it was within that 24-hour period, I think it was like the night before I was after a staff meeting and not really because people were looking at me. I had 25 or 6 staff at the time, and they're all looking at me scared, and I'm scared as well. Like, what's going to go on, Adam? I actually didn't know what was going on myself, and I was scared, and I didn't know what to say. And after that, I cracked open a Glenfiddich. I don't know how many years old was, old one, and I think I got through the bottle. Next day, I had a disgusting hangover. So after lunch, I think my daughter was still at school at that time. I might have gone hair of the dog. So that was a Friday, and then that was a Saturday, and then said some things that I deeply regret, and ended up getting myself almost cancelled. So made the choice to never drink again. So I'm not proud of my behaviour, but I'm glad it happened because it meant that I drew a line in the sand, and I can honestly say I've never been drunk since. And it's something I'm actually really proud of because it's very hard. When people people ask you for a drink and you say you don't drink, they look at you like something wrong with you.
Look, I'd have to say the same thing. Like, I wouldn't be who I am now, which is a much better person than I was if I hadn't have gone through what I did.
How hard was that time for you?
Dude, I mean, this is the other thing. I think like it was a crazy time, man. It was like we didn't know if we were going to hold our businesses. We didn't know if our kids were going to survive or our mums were going to survive. Like, we didn't know this was a global pandemic when it was being put to us that, like, this thing was going to kill everybody. So your whole way, and that's not an excuse. That's just 100% doesn't excuse anything. But it's like, it can sort of contribute to mindset at the time. And
it was a set of parameters that was unprecedented in history that we know of in modern history.
Yeah, and and also, not a lot of people know, but at the time, I was going through, not only that, I was going through divorce, financial settlement, and all that kind of stuff. So, and even I actually had a conversation with a client the other day on Saturday, and she just said to me, like, how different I am as a person now to what I was a few years ago. She was like, she actually said, and look, she's still a client, like, she's stayed with me, God bless her. She was like, sometimes she would not want to talk about topics because this is during the COVID, just because of how, how I could be. And I think, but going through it and literally, like, I lost everything for like years. Like,
What do you
years.
mean everything?
Oh, look, brand gone, education gone, everything I'd worked towards, like on an international platform, gone. I had a business at the time with my now ex-wife, who we're on great terms now. But like, marriage breakups can be really tough.
Of course.
So going through that was not nice. But we're in a very different place as co-parenting and stuff now, very amicable. Sheila's actually doing the makeup for my next collection. Yeah, and I was angry, just on the whole, and I don't think that alcohol and lockdown mixed with that very well. I didn't give up alcohol, but I tell you what, feeling like losing everything that I've worked years and in probably some aspects been very ungrateful for. I think I took a lot of my success for granted. Yeah, I think it caused me to reevaluate what's important and who do I want to be? What do I want people to say when they walk away from a conversation? Do I want them to be like, this motherfucker's intense and angry? Or do I want them to be like, this is a nice person, a genuinely nice person who, does want to give back. That's why I'm doing this mentoring thing as well. Because I want to be the person that people interact with and like, that was a nice interaction. And during COVID, and around then, I was not that person. But I'm much happier now.
Ben, do you think that was warranted, given that, maybe some people were less vocal? It's not like they weren't vocal at all. I just sort of felt like you were in some respects scapegoated.
So actually I don't work for him anymore. So the national education manager at the brand that I was working at had a target on my back since she took the job. And I know that because she actually brought things up. I'd worked internationally in Miami in January 2020, and the global head of education brought up that person's attitude towards me. Right. And she was shocked that somebody would behave like that. Now, the incident occurred at the time. The GM of the brand reached out to me and said that the brand had no objections to what I'd done, as there had technically been a breach in what was in the contract. 2 days later, I was asked to remove it, which I said, of course, immediately. I kind of had instant regret, but with the incident anyway, but I removed it immediately. And then it was the day we came back to work after a lockdown, so it was very stressful. That national education manager called me with the GM on the phone. So even though there was no issue with what I'd done, the GM of this brand had actually said that he felt that I had been attacked by this person and their staff. So they were trolling me and I was defending myself.
And who was around to make sure you were okay?
No one.
We talk about mental health, and one of the things that I think is worth mentioning, you got to mention both sides of the fence. And one is, the things that I said and the things that other people, maybe even you said during that time, probably could have affected people's mental health. And I put my hand up, and that's why I apologized. But then no one cared about Ben Martin's mental health. No one called to say, hey, mate, how you doing? Because I'm not blowing my own trumpet. I know I did.
You definitely did.
Reached out to you, and because, maybe because we were two peas in a pod at that point. But I'm actually really saddened by the fact that no one reached out to say, hey, mate, look, this is a decision we've come to, and I hope you understand. That aside, business is business. Are you okay? How are you going? What's happening? And I'm sure that, like, the brand that I work for, that I love Matrix. I bleed Matrix, and I left for a small time and instantly regretted it and begged for my job back. We touched on it before with the creative process. I just thought, man, there's just so much going on. Even though I'd done something and I'd caused some problems, they actually still reached out and asked how I was going, because they knew the person I was, and I knew the person I am, and they're like, "Daddy's really out of character for you. Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm actually not. I'm drinking. This is not good, and it's affected my behavior. It was really out of character, but at least they reached out. I'm actually really horrified that no one reached out and said, you know, mate, yes, unfortunately you breached your contract, whatever that may be, but we know who you are and we just want to make sure you're okay. And maybe with time we can reconnect down the track. You know, that's not possible at the moment, but the fact that no one reached out to check on how you're going mentally, that's really bad.
Yeah, it didn't feel good, to be honest, mate. Pretty bad. Look, it just kind of went silent. And also, as I said, I was going through some other stuff, and I don't really talk about it. But at that time, that's when things got really bad for me.
Well, they have known about that though, because people at the people at Matrix, although I don't divulge my personal life, if I was going through a
Yeah,
marriage
no,
breakup,
of course,
they're obviously,
because
yeah, first and foremost, I'm a client of theirs. You know, I've been a client of Matrix since 2014. I didn't start working for them until 2017. So they would have known it, as my wife is my business partner. Well, she's technically not involved in the business, and that's purely for asset protection reasons, but she's my life partner, period, in everything I do. They would have known that. So they would have like, fuck, you know, fuck, he's going for a divorce. Someone's got to reach out and check on him.
no, well, because that had started in the October before the end of October, so they definitely knew. Yeah, it got real bad. I don't really talk about it. Nobody knew about it at the time. I remember, like, I started to really mentally spiral out of control, which led to me calling my mum, very concerned about my own physical safety. So that had kind of spiraled out of control. I was concerned about my self-harm. So yeah, I got a mental
Really,
health.
was that bad, mate?
Yeah.
Ben, come on, man. Nothing's ever that bad.
It was. I got to the point where I was. I know what to do to make myself not here, and I was heavily contemplating, not borderline planning.
Right. That's deep.
So I reached out to my mum. Yeah, and I went to a GP, got a mental health care plan, got into a psychologist.
I'm glad you took steps to correct that, man, because, you know, I think in our industry, we obviously always celebrate. We don't celebrate, but we say to people, like, there's learnings in mistakes, you know, and
100%.
we've got to be, you know, we've got to be like, you know, don't load up on people when they're down. Like, yes, you got to call them out on bad behavior, and I was called out on mine, but to then just like say ridicule people to the point that wouldn't fly these days. Post COVID, we know how much mental damage has been done to lots of different demographics of people in many different parts of life. Like, I just think now, if that were to happen now, mate, there'd be serious consequences for someone. Like, that there's a responsibility to people to make sure that people are okay. So I
Yeah,
hope that everyone that was involved has probably learned from that, because if they didn't already know, after they listen to this, they're going to know. And that's
yeah.
shit house,
Well,
man.
it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. And then yeah, and I mean I've got two kids and stuff and things like that. So but the other thing is I was also during COVID, because I have my kids 50% of the time. I was spending, 50% of the time I'd be at their mum's. The other 50% of the time I was alone. Like, well, when they weren't here. So sitting
Man,
alone in your house by yourself during lockdown, when you were going through these things, was not a good place to be. But yeah, I started seeing a psychologist who I still see once a month now. I don't have any issues like that anymore. But also, I
good.
think
It's good to hear.
it's like it was bad, but it's also rebuilding myself from that allowed me to rebuild a much stronger, kinder, more empathetic version of myself. So it sort of goes back to I'm happy with who I am now, and I'm really happy with where things are going in my life. And I don't think, unless I almost bottomed out, I probably wouldn't be. I mean, I wouldn't want to go through it again, but I wouldn't be who I am And I think, being happy with who you are is way more important than any award that any of us can win.
100%.
But yeah, it was pretty bad. And look, I've never really, this is the first time I've probably actually spoken about it with anyone other than Matt, my psychologist. But yeah, it was pretty bad.
I'm glad you have, because it's a very important thing. And for anyone listening to this podcast, if you're ever having any issues, there's many places you can reach out. I actually Men's Link's something that's well established in Canberra. I think men particularly aren't that great at talking about it. I put my hand up. I've had my own battles over the years, and I've sought help when needed. And yeah, I'll make sure there's some good links now. I appreciate you sharing that with us, man. That's really important. I had no idea.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think one of the things is like that I became aware of is when things do get that bad, you're not posting it anywhere. Like, you become very, very internal, very insular. And as I said, spending a lot of time alone. Locked down for 3 months, and half of that time you're just alone by yourself. It just wasn't good. So thank God for my mum.
We all need our mums.
Yeah, we definitely.
My mum's the most incredible woman I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, I don't really tell my mum about it. It's quite difficult. You know what it's like. Sometimes it's hard.
Yeah, they stress out too much.
Yeah. So, but yeah, look, as I said, things are great now, though. You know what I mean? Like,
awesome.
I'm every aspect of my life I'm very happy with, because I rebuilt it. But I rebuilt it, and I'm much more grateful, and I think that is what makes it a lot better. I don't take opportunities for granted. I don't take being able to do, one of the best jobs in the world for granted or anything like that. So,
yep.
Yeah,
awesome.
I think it was, even though it was probably the worst time in my life, it was the best learning time of my life. I learned a lot about it.
What did the great Volkanovski say? Adversity is a blessing. What did he say? Adversity is a blessing, is a privilege. A privilege. Adversity is a privilege.
A privilege. Yeah, and it is, because I have to be grateful for that. I have to be grateful for it. Even though it was terrible at the time, I have to be grateful for it, because I wouldn't have and be who I am now.
Yep, that's what I said before. All our ups and downs define us as people and make us who we are. Chats with good people, they go fast. I just burnt for an hour and 10 minutes like it was nothing. Did you manage to get a little listen on the last podcast I did? Because I'd really love to hear what you think about social media. And I guess one of the things I've been talking is, you've already touched on it actually, the things that you love most about being a hairdresser is the relationships and seeing clients. As I said to these people in New Zealand, I actually had a very controversial social media keynote that I gave in New Zealand, because people, a huge part of it was showing them, being very transparent about the income that I was making on social media and how that's dwindled up. I mean, at one point I had a ambassador role with Renault Australia, where the local dealer here arranged me to have a car. So I was getting a new car every 6 months, and one of the things I said to people is, that's not normal. It's like if you bought a house in Richmond in the 80s and you went to develop it today, and you're making 40, 50x on the cost of the land. Does that make you a property mogul and a development whiz, or is that just a product of timing, because of when you were born? And that's what I said to these young kids in New Zealand, is chasing this idealistic dream of being an influencer, I think is really dangerous, because you're going after things that may or may not be realistic. A lot of the influencers we see that are making money don't actually have to go and perform a 9 to 5. They're cooking in their kitchens, or they're fitness blogging or whatever. And I told them that, I went from around about $200,000 a year total on sort of like brand deals and endorsements and sponsorship. Like, I started wearing blue light glasses to stop hair from going in my eyes, because you can see I got big fish eyes, right? So one of the things I do is I sit when I cut hair, and I do a lot of dry hair cutting, and it goes right on your face. So I was like constantly having like those eye baths where you put the thing on there and wash it out. My wife's like, why don't you just go on Key and just get yourself some blue light glasses? I'm like, fuck, that's actually really, really smart. So I started doing that. I wore them on one YouTube video, and then the next thing you know, Key Australia are like, oh, we noticed you're wearing our glasses. We'd love to send you some more. So like all these things were coming up, but mate, that is dried up. It is over. Like it's just not the same. And I think that even companies and brands are seeing that sort of reach peak digital. So I've started this thing called Join the Analog Revolution. So I want to make it sexy again to, you know, for first and second year apprentices, is don't worry about a like on social media. Worry that your client loved their scalp massage and that they, you know, they loved the treatment you gave them and they loved your blow dry. Get the likes off the clients.
Mate,
you know what I mean? Join Ciaccia's analog revolution. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on social media and where it's been and where it's headed?
It's funny you say that about massage, right? Like shampooing. I trained at a salon in Bendigo, which at the time was the largest single salon L'Oreal account in the country, called Jules for Jim. And dude, that's how I like just making sure that I was giving the best hair wash and the best scalp massage. Honestly, like I used to have these ladies waiting out the front ready, you know, they'd be like, oh no, they wanted me to wash their hair. Like they were just waiting.
I want Ben to do it. I'll wait for Ben. And the stylist is like, fuck, I'm running behind. You can't wait for Ben.
No, that's literally what would happen. And even like, so it was pretty funny. But then what happened is I trained under a guy, Tim, who was amazing. But then what happened is that established trust. So then if he couldn't do like a blow dry or something, they trusted me. So, you know, then I started doing his foils and stuff like that and some tints and I could blow dry for him. But yeah, like, look,
he goes on holidays. He goes on holidays and before you know it, you've got a clientele.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is the most important thing is not this number of followers on a page. It's how many bums are in your seats that are satisfied. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and also, like, when did this stop being a people job and be a digital job? This is
or an attention job.
An attention job. This is for people. The amount of like my clients went through my divorce with me. I'm going through my clients' divorces with them now. At one stage, I had a pretty significant salon following, and I've actually watched it go down. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck.
What's made it gone down?
Because it's like, you know, some people just stop following. It's not dramatic. It hasn't dropped off by like, 5,000-10,000. But, you know, you see it go down a little bit, you know, followers. And you're like, you know.
Oh, you mean digital following?
Yeah, digital following.
That's normal. That's normal.
But it's like,
normal.
I just don't care.
I thought you meant in the salon in your chair.
No, well, at the moment, I do, in all transparency, I do have a downturn because there's economic issues.
Yeah, that's different.
Like cost of living is
that's outside of your control.
Exactly, and the other thing is like all you can do is like, for me, my clients have been so loyal to me for years that when it comes, I don't do cancellation policies, to be honest, because sometimes for people, they don't want to suffer the embarrassment of just telling you they can't afford it.
Yeah.
And I'm also like, we're all in this together. That's how I view it with my clients. This is a difficult time. I don't see it being over in 12 months. The Great Depression went for 10 years. But I love
I think it's going to be longer. I think it'll be a decade. I think you're right.
Yeah. And I think that's okay. We've just got to buckle down and get through it. But I love the idea of this analog revolution. I did a video about it last year. I had this little segment that I was doing called Hope This Helps. But it's like, whatever happened to word of mouth? That is like, you can't put a value on it because a happy client tells their friend. Then their friend may have an experience they're not entirely happy with at another hair salon. I'm like, why don't you go see Adam? Adam's great. I've been seeing him for years. And also, anybody outside of your direct geographical location is highly likely not going to be your client.
That's right.
So what are you doing? You're trying to just be, what did you say before? It's like, it's popular. Like,
you're trading on attention, but that's not how hairdressers or all personal services industries really. Attention is not how you trade. You trade on trust, confidentiality, and respect.
Well, attention for a lot of particularly young people is short. So you may get them one or two times, but they've got somebody else has got their attention and then they're off. I think people need to, then, you know, like most of my clients are professional women with a level 6, right? I've known some of these women for borderline 20 years. They're like friends. They've supported my business. I don't shove a camera in their face. Like, I've moved into the, like, I occasionally may take a pic, like very occasionally. You know what? It's like I saw you said in your last podcast about you don't go to a good restaurant and somebody jams a camera in your face. But if the product's good, somebody's taking a picture of that plate and then they're going to post it.
It's funny. It's funny you said that, because one of the things that we did in our new salon after COVID, my landlord thought it would be prudent to double my rent, so I was sort of left with no choice but to leave. So I built a new salon, and I'd already started thinking about this analog revolution thing. So what we did was we created a mirror in a private part of the salon with, like, it's like a big beauty mirror with the globes all around it.
Yep.
So they could go and take a selfie if they like their hair.
Yep.
And then they could post it if they want. And I think that's similar to what you're saying about the consumer will take a photo. And I don't know why people take photos of their food. You know, their food is, they love it, like, oh my God, look how this is plated up. This tastes so good. That's what social media is. It's really like a journal or a diary or whatever you want to share. But we decided to, like, less asking and then asking them, hey, if you ever love your hair, you're more than welcome to go down to the end there and take a photo of it and send it to your friends. And they do it.
And then what also happens, they kind of see that other people are doing that. And then the ones that want to do that, they follow that. But then you got other ones who don't. And that's cool too, because they're also more likely to be the ones that are word of mouth. Like, I think I built a business on word of mouth. Like, and it is, word of mouth is not just attention. So it's not fleeting. It's like, oh, well, now I've got groups of friends that come and stuff like that. And it's trust. It's trust. 100%.
Like, if one of your clients tells their friends they trust a friend, and people have forgotten how valuable trust is. It is a prerequisite to love. It is the most important thing someone can give you. It's unmeasured how valuable it is. Like, they trust you. So
there's so many of these social media courses, and I'm not taking away from them, but I'm like it's not the most important. Connection and trust is the most important thing about what we do. And then when they have a connection and trust with you, they're going to pass that on. Hey, go to see Adam. He's a great person. It's not, look.
Yeah, he'll look after you, you know,
I've taken a massive step back from social media. Now, I post more to my, what I would say is my Ben Martin hair page, which is like more collection stuff. But I just post that. But in my salon, it's also, there's over 1,000 photos on that. Like, if somebody wants to find hair, I'm pretty sure they can find it in what's there. I don't have to update it every day. Like,
I agree.
And it's also, could you imagine if people put as much effort into their client satisfaction as to just getting a picture of someone, here, lean a little bit forward, pull the hair. Like, could you imagine if you put that much effort into the relationship? Like,
I'm writing this down, mate. It's gold. I think Ben Martin's going to join the revolution.
Oh, mate, I'm already. Look, I was quietly part of it. But as you look, and as I said, it, you know, just touching on what we talked about before, after everything kind of fell down for me, I definitely took a step back from social media, and it's, look, sometimes my partner will call me out, and it's good to have somebody who's like, you're always, and I'm like, it causes me to correct. Having somebody not in an industry like that, in our industry, is really good, because she'll call me out on it. And it's actually, sometimes I'll be like, but she's doing the right thing.
Yeah, Jazzy, who I spoke to last time, she was a New Zealand influencer of the year in 2024. She said the thing that she's learned is to have self-awareness, or to appoint someone to be aware for you, so that you know, because sometimes you can just get caught up to the point, whether it's like in your personal life or your professional life, if you can't audit it and monitor it yourself, you need to be self-aware. It's like, okay, am I paying more attention to my social than I am my clientele? And it's like, you know, you're on your phone more than paying attention to your children when they're there. So it's the same thing. You need to be
The
self-aware.
other thing is and look, I'm obviously, we follow each other. I've seen your social media. You've got posts with like over 1 million views, right? I mean, I posted one with the bubble and it got like 1.7 million views. It
That was
did
amazing, by the way. It's
zero.
amazing.
Thank you. Did zero for my bottom line. Zero for my bottom line. And
Yeah.
it was a lot of attention, but attention isn't money. Look, I did say this to somebody once. Trophies don't buy.
Well, it can be. Attention can be money.
Attention
But
can be money.
this is what I said in my social media class. It's like the attention that you're giving that to earn an income. If you want to be honest with yourself, it's costing you the digital attention where you're making money. The analog money is dropping.
Yes, 100%.
And even if you can maintain the same and you can maintain them both equally, how long can you sustain that for before you burn yourself out?
Because this is when we talked about like education and collections. You've got bandwidth, right? You only have so much bandwidth. Like,
Correct.
you can't. Something's got to give, and if something doesn't give, it collapses. And
It collapses
really,
bad.
you should really be thinking like, who do I owe the most to? The people who have dedicated their time and money to my business for years, or people somewhere else that I may never meet who gave me a love heart or a review. And for me, that was a big turning point. Like, it was like,
that's a great way to articulate it.
like, hey man, do you know who I need to give back to? The people who have stood by me through, COVID, through opening a business, through running a business, through all the things for the last year. Who's the most important, and who should I give back to, and who should I be most grateful for? And I shouldn't be the most grateful for somebody in another country liking my picture. When somebody comes in, you should be like, this person gets everything from me. Not 95%, they get 100%. My focus is in this chair is 100%. And if they want to take a photo of my work, that's fine. If they don't, that's also fine.
Yep,
right?
I agree.
Nobody wants the camera jammed in, and I'm an Adam. I'm 100% guilty of doing it. 100%.
Yeah, I did it too. I'm not saying I didn't do it,
but
I didn't do it very much. There were clients who I did ask to have photos, and then I just saw their reaction. I was like, oh shit, that didn't land like I did. I didn't realize I was offending them.
It's nice to also just not have to worry about that.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of
because
pressure. I don't have to get the perfect picture. Do you know why?
It does.
I'm trying to do the hair to the best of my ability. I don't have to add this perfect picture on top of it. It's expectation.
I just think we need to see. We need to see social media as another type of website. It's like you mentioned about your page. When I look at Ben Martin Hair, it screams that clearly you're very talented, far more talented than I ever have been or ever will be. It shows me your aesthetic. It has like a beautiful journey. If you scroll right down, and sometimes I do that, I don't really go through the feed, but I'll click on somebody and I was like, I might spend 10 minutes looking at their work, and I took the time to look at yours. It just tells me who you are as an artist. It shows me your aesthetic. It shows me the quality of your work, shows you the type of stuff you do. Then you look at the salon page, there should be a distinguished difference, because one about is the individual as an artist. The other one is a catalogue of work that shows potential clients the broad scope of hair that you do, that you can actually accommodate pretty much everybody. And that's what I got from looking at your social media.
Well, you remember this. Remember when you used to have in the salon, we used to go through magazines and just cut out pictures?
Yeah.
Nobody gave a shit about when they were taken. Like, do you know what I mean?
No.
It didn't have to be taken yesterday. They were just looking for hairstyles that they wanted. That's how I view my salon Instagram page. It is a digital copy of the old school folder with all the new weekly or Vogue pictures cut out. They can go through it for reference. It doesn't need to be updated all the time, because also, not only that, it's essentially a lot of the same techniques and colors, just on different faces.
Yep.
Like,
and you mentioned also before that like lots of social media courses. One of the things that, and I think they're very valid. I think they're extremely valid. I think all education, if it's going to help people have as I call, a balanced approach to the analog and digital, I think it's valid. But you see young hairdressers there's a couple of things. So the pressure of being a first or second year and then having to have someone like your content you're sharing, I think that, we see what the effect that social media has on young people. And I don't understand this reason why people who have been working in a salon or been a hairdresser for a month need to have Instagram for their salon
No,
work. But
what are
park
you
that.
doing? What are you doing to their self-worth? You're not
Yeah,
teaching them.
well, you're making them vulnerable, more vulnerable than they have to be. Like I remember getting a like one of those small round Denman brushes stuck in someone's head doing a blow dry. I had to be cut out. Like it's already, you know what I mean? It's
Uh,
already hard. Like learning a shampoo and wetting someone's face. Like,
no,
these are just
my first ever blow dry, the hair got sucked into the back of the parlor.
oh, we've all done that.
And I was like, dude, and you're just like,
Take 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 the filter off, Ben. It's more powerful.
you
Yeah,
know, you're
right. I'll do
so
it.
hot, you're so hot. And it was the first ever, the lady from the cafe next door was beautiful. And the girl said, she's like, it's okay. And just hot and stressed. And
Oh
dude,
shit.
at that stage, I was like, oh, this isn't for me. There's already enough of those moments in your apprenticeship where you're like, the
Yeah.
first time maybe a foil bleeds or there's an overtone,
Yep.
and you're already like, this job's not for me. This job is
Correct.
so crazy.
But then the expectation of having to post content and somehow become a part of the social media cog driving someone's business, it's too much at a young
But
age.
it's also, who are you competing with? People who have got 20 years experience as a hairdresser, right? And
Yep.
years more of experience producing that content. So think about it like this. You're trying to compete with an Olympian, right? When you started running 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's a great analogy again. And it's just putting too much pressure on kids and setting them up for, not failure, but we should be like, I don't mean to sound like old man and daddish, but we should be like sheltering from them, sheltering them from that in some respects, and mentoring to say, don't worry about that at the moment.
Yeah.
Just focus on
You know
doing
what?
hair. And if you
Because you know what I
want
need
to,
you to do?
learn.
I need you to learn how to pick a base color, mix color, and put on a tint, because that's what you need to do, because that's money, and that's what most of your career is actually going to be, right?
Yep.
Which is great, because that's not bad. That's where your relationships.
Well, it's learning to do the hair that your clients are going to come in and ask for.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what it's about.
So, but also, yeah, you're right. Just shelter them from like judgment and comparison until they're ready to go out into that world. Because when you're an apprentice, you're not ready to go out into that world. Because as I just said, it's like you're a mum and dad weekend runner trying to run against an Olympian,
a marathon,
like, who's got who you don't realize has got a history of taking photos. They know how to edit. They know, like, they have years of experience in lighting setup, and you're trying to compete with that.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourself, actually, and
it's also like, sorry, yeah.
I think that I think that salons should definitely stop putting that on apprentices. They've already got enough trouble getting apprentices and keeping them. I think we should make it a safe place for them to grow and flourish and learn their skills before you go and have them essentially compete with everybody else on a digital platform.
It's a solution to so many things. Like you look at the issues around, and we'll go back. I just want to, actually, I'll come to that in a second, but one of the things you touched on before is the education part of people having lots of courses. I'm astounded that first and second year apprentices will go, and I'm not for a minute suggesting that digital is not relevant, but they'll pay $500 to go to a social media class to learn how to take photos, but they won't go and do a $299 class. Or if they're with a company like L'Oreal, they have education by the educators. It is as little as, like, you can go and do a color correction course at one of the academies for $199 for a whole 8 hours. They can't get people to do it. Yet they'll pay $500 to learn how to take a photo.
Man, I used to travel from Bendigo on the train to come into the L'Oreal Tech Centre in the city to do a colour course.
Yeah.
Right?
But yeah, that's how you learn.
Everybody wants the fame, but nobody wants to put in the work. And the real work is not the social media. The real work is in getting skilled enough to produce high quality work.
That's right. Because
I don't know about you, but I don't really know many. Remember when we're relatively the same age? where London was the mecca of hairdressing. It's where you wanted to go and just.
That's why I went to Sassoon.
Yeah, you wanted to go and learn from the best, and then you go and establish relationships that you have forever. Like that's where I met Zoe Irwin. I'm still, you know, if I ever want to go and work over there, I can always reach out to her. You have these relationships, but it's not. They see these, and there's nothing. And then people obviously do an incredible job, but there is like getting. I think getting really good at your job and your craft should be more important than just getting famous. I think if you're,
I think it also solves the financial thing as well, right? Because having followers on Instagram, unless and look, it should be said that there is money to be made online. I'm not suggesting that there isn't, but it's not you've already touched on it. It's and I'm sure she won't mind me you saying her name, but I'm just going to use the person who I think, in terms of Instagram space, has always been the leader, and that's Natalie Ann. And people look at Natalie Ann, and it's like, yes, her work is phenomenal, but they forget. And actually, I think there was she did a post about her and Arthur's journey, but they forget she started as an incredibly gifted hairdresser that came from being prepared to do the things that other hairdressers weren't to do. The other one that I remember is Joey Scandizzo. I remember seeing Joey Scandizzo volunteering at hair expos when I was a first-year apprentice. They just think that there's this perception that social media has created them the business avenues they have today. It hasn't. It just didn't. It came from like learning the skills required to then create content that attracts people to come and do their work. And most importantly, you can deliver when they come, because you're posting photos that are creating a false perception, sometimes not always, of maybe what you can or can't do. And then someone's coming to you and asking you to do things that you may actually not have the ability to be able to offer that on a broad spectrum of people. You might have, Megan, 22 years old, beautiful, personal trainer who has level 7 natural hair, virgin hair, and you do beautiful highlights on her and you post it. Then people are going to come to you from Western Sydney with black hair and want you to do the same. Now, if you don't have the skill set in your bag to be able to lighten from level 3 to level 10, you're going to just have people come once and they'll never come again. I just see all these little issues that are rising, and it's not the middle 60%, it's the 20% on either edge. But that's the 20% on either edge is what social media is driving. People who have unrealistic expectations of what can be done, and we're facilitating it by putting up these perfectly curated photos when we're not actually prepared to be able to perform the 20% on each edge on the 60% that are going to come to the salon regularly.
100%. But I was just touching on what you said about Nat and Joey. Like, people have no idea how much work that they've put in the years in the lead up to before they found that success. So
I saw it.
Like, as in, like,
and I still admire it.
The late nights and in the salon by yourself, or as you said about Joey volunteering. I mean,
for free for 10 years for free.
The amount of free work that I did, right? For years, like, I would pay for myself to go and do stuff just to be hands-on, to get the experience. And like, you look at Nat's success, but she did so much work to get there that some of the digital influence, some of the young people, they don't see that. So they just think she got famous. For Instagram. No, she got famous because she's fucking good and worked her ass off.
Yep. One of the best of our generation by far.
You know what I mean?
Yep. And endured the highs and lows of failures and successes in business and staff and this and that.
Posting at the time, like, how exhausted she was, like, things going on at home, how mentally drained you get, how, like, it's a learning experience. So sometimes you do use too much bandwidth and that exhausts you. And nobody's posting. They just think, if I do this, I'll get famous. No. You have to do a whole lot of work beforehand. You have to do a whole lot of work beforehand. And also,
you do.
As I said, like, when you said about, when you had those social media opportunities and stuff like that, a lot of it is about timing. A lot of it is.
Of course.
And sometimes it's the storm in a teacup. Like you're just in the right place, right time, and it takes off. And I don't see that happening a lot with social media.
Well, it's like, you can control what goes inside what well, you can't always, but you have far better control of what goes on inside your salon environment. And to some respects, maybe 6 to 8 years ago, when it came to digital, you had similar levels of control, but now you literally have no control. I mean, you're investing in a strategy, which I'm not saying you should stop, but too heavily in one strategy that you actually, I don't know if hairdressers realize how very little control they have over that. Not park all the good and bad comments aside that can be damaging, the bad Google reviews and things like that. But what about changes to algorithm? What about the Australian government introducing TikTok laws, which are going to, you've invested these 2-3 years building TikTok to go to to get the 16 to 21s to come in. Well, they're not going to be able to see it soon. So there's lots of things that can actually interfere with that. Jazzy, who I had last time, her account was hacked. So if your primary database for your clientele is online and it gets hacked, we're exposing we're willingly exposing vulnerabilities that we never once had. Yeah, people can hack into your salon database and whatever, but that's far less likely unless you've got financial data.
But it's also like it comes back to the old saying, all your eggs in one basket. Like, you got to diversify. And look, like years and years ago, like my salon account was growing, and it was like, I think it was like 30,000 at one stage or something. And then I had to.
That's huge. It's amazing.
When I started with a brand, they wanted me to have my own one. I was like, okay. And I grew that, and then shit hit the fan. And then I stopped growing it. And the difference that I can see now, like my work now is, I've had a period of growth where I feel that my work has improved. But how much harder it is just to grow, because I took a couple of years kind of off, and how much harder it is to grow a audience now than just say what it was in 2019. Like,
it's impossible.
And it's like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And the thing is, so you kind of got to go like, well, all right, well, that's okay. But how do I grow my actual business, not my Instagram profile? Because that's not your actual business. Well,
not with the analog.
Like, and as I said, and they monetized Instagram. Remember how easy Instagram was before they monetized it? Now you got to pay to get seen, or you've got to come up with like, to go viral. Like, you got to.
Just the psychology of it is really fascinating to me, because when it got to the point where people were buying followers, that was when the red flag came up for me. I was just like, hang on a minute. People are willingly buying followers, which serves zero purpose other than to front and say, I've got followers. I'm like, what? What for? You're better off just to have 500 real people than 2,000, 1,500 have been bought. And from that point, I think that was the point of decay. That was the point of decay where it's just gone from there, and it's just started coming down ever since.
But it's also, you're better off with 20 people in your local area than 22,000 across the world. Like
100%.
So focus on them, and also don't make people, I think that should be encouraged in young people to hey man, just focus on what you have control of, which is the area around you now geographically. Build clients from there. Worry about that other stuff later. I'll tell you what, in 10 years' time, it's not going to be Instagram. It's going to be something else, because it used to be Facebook. Remember when we were all trying to build our Facebook? And then it went to Instagram. And then Meta bought that, and that killed us all.
Yep.
And then, and then it's TikTok. And then, look, I'm 43 years old. I can't dance.
You're a baby. You got a few years to catch me, mate.
Like, I'm not doing catching me doing dance routines. And I'm too white with no rhythm.
These feet were made for football. I can't dance either.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'll tell you what, when you do make the adjustment as somebody who's done it, you do find a lot more joy in the job.
Yeah. I think one of the most satisfying things with my job is, like generally, I don't know if you agree or not, but my clientele's around about 15 years either side. So 15 years younger than me, maybe more, mid 20s, maybe 20 years younger, and maybe 15, 20 years older. But when you start, doing someone's hair and they, when I was like 20, because I started my apprenticeship when I was 21, so I was quite old, and I was charging 49.50, and those people are still coming today, and I'm charging them 230. I've seen them get married, have children, and now I'm starting to see their children graduate from university, getting engaged. That is a beautiful part of what we do. And I don't know if there's many industries or occupations where you actually
Family
get,
doctor, maybe.
yeah, maybe, but it's only 15 minutes, like in and out. Like, yeah, no, family doc you would, because we all see our same doctor. Yeah,
you're spending 2.5, sometimes 3 hours with these people every 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah,
For 20 years, and as you said, you see in marriage, you sometimes see their marriages end, you sometimes see new relationships, you see their kids.
yeah.
Then you see their kids go on to like finish high school, and you're like, there really isn't a profession where you get to have that level and depth of connection with people outside of this.
Do you think that's appealing to young people, Ben?
I'll tell you what, if I could offer any young people any advice, that would be do you know why? Because you find joy in it, and it comes back to the old, if you enjoy your job, really enjoy your job, you will never work a day in your life.
Do they understand the power of relationships with people? And I'll give you an example.
Think that probably relationships are damaged with young people due to social media. My children don't cut it. But I mean,
building those long-term relationships in the salon with people, how powerful it is. I'll share something with you that I've not shared publicly before. See, babe, enjoy swimming. My wife got cancer in 2015, and it's easily the most terrifying, challenging thing I've ever been through in my life. I've been through some pretty tough shit. Nothing comes close to fighting for your wife's life. And I remember one of my clients who's one of the world's most respected oncologists. And so people often ask me, and I think it's quite a shitty question to ask, but do I do famous people? And I was like, a couple of like TV presenters and stuff like that. But I do, the majority of my people, the people I do are like very powerful people in terms of politicians, senior diplomats, people who are writing policies that actually mess with your life. And, people who are doing real meaningful stuff like doctors and people like that. I remember saying to this client, respectfully, I hope I never have to come and see you like you regularly see me. And he said, well, that said, if you ever did, goes without saying, you could call me in any time. So anyway, I remembered him saying that, and we got the bad news, and we're working with another doctor. I was like, should I call him? Is that unprofessional? Like, well, he did say. So I called him, and he answers the phone. He goes, hey, Adam, is it you or Michelle? Please tell me it's not Ada. He knew exactly why I was calling him. He said, I gave him a summary of what happened. He said, send me the pathology, send me all the reports you got. I'll go over them straight away. He calls me back and we have a conversation. And, what that led to was basically saving my wife's life, because he told me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. But that just came from having a genuine human connection. You don't realize that if needed, that would probably be reciprocal, that you've accommodated them, they've run late, they cancel. Can you fit me in early? Can you stay back late? You do these things for people and you think, far out, like, what do I get out of this? You don't realize the power of the database and the relationships you've created. It was like one of the people who helped me buy the property actually worked at the bank, and it went bad. Like, it went really bad. We stood to lose $500,000 deposit. And she was able to, because she was on a senior person within this organization, see where it went wrong and troubleshoot it and fixed it for me. There's another thing, like I could go on and on and on about that, but the most valuable one was life. And I think that young people don't realize that the connections that we're making online, and you've already touched on it, they're actually quite short and sharp and short-lived. And they're sort of like, they're just how did you articulate it? You said it was a relationship that was like, They came to you because it was a photo, like short attention. So like you had their attention, then they booked with you. And I said it in my presentation.
Oh,
A digital clientele is like 18 to 25. They're generally not financially stable. They are less reliable. Not always. This is very general. They cancel last minute. Sometimes don't show up at all. And even if they love their hair, they rarely rebook. And it goes back to what you said about attention. And it's like it's a quick attention thing. You got my attention. I'll book in. And even if they liked it, whoever gets their attention next, it's going to give them. Now I'm sure, as you could probably agree, that we aren't always. And I would like to think, because of my experience, I don't often get people come back. Sometimes I've cut their fringe not short enough and I've got to touch it up, whatever. Or they're probably just too scared to tell me they didn't like it. But I'm sure that not every haircut is perfect. But because of the relationship that we had, it's like I've got buffer that they're not going to just dump me if I don't meet the expectation of that photo.
well, it's also like, yeah, nobody's going to bat 100 every single game. And when you have relationships like that, I mean, if it's not perfect, they're going to come back next time and go, oh, hey, we just need to, this happened with my hair last time, or my color didn't hold on the ends, or something, blah, blah, blah. But you have that relationship, that you have a bond that means that you're still going to have their loyalty. So
Yeah,
they're
that's
going
right.
to just tell you. Whereas when you live in that attention world of Instagram, and I still sometimes get them, you know, I post certain people and I'll get an influx of like people who are more attention, like clients, I would refer to them. They're short attention clients. You may get them, you may do them a couple of times, but it's also why I don't have a cancellation fee, because most of my clients are long term, and because I've built that over time, and sometimes they need to cancel last minute or something like that. It's never a problem, because they're always going to come back. They've supported my business. But then, as you mentioned before about the thing that happened with your partner and you knew an oncologist, sometimes you may call on them, and these relationships are important. Like, I remember one of
Yeah,
my clients was
100%.
a barrister. I had a girl sharing space in my building upstairs. She was fearful. She had a former employer. This wasn't a hairdressing, it was something else, who actually came into the salon and attempted to physically intimidate her in the space. And she needed to get an AVO. And one of my clients, who's a criminal barrister, actually went with her to get her the AVO. So she turned up to, I think it's magistrate's
It's
court,
amazing.
with a criminal barrister to get an AVO against a former employer that was threatening. Like, you also, as you said, you would, you know, touch wood, you never want to have to go through, and I'm sorry that you had to go through what you went through with your partner. I mean, that's obviously, you know,
Thank you. She's great now.
horrible. But it's like, you don't know, and that's, I think, something that time teaches us. You never know when you're going to need those relationships and which ones you will need.
Correct.
So you should harbor all of your relationships with your clients like they may one day save your partner's life.
Yep. And I think a part of the analog revolution is like exposing the value of those connections in the salon. And I'm not saying you can't establish a connection via a digital medium, but it's like focusing on minimizing distractions. The person is the only person in the world we're in the chair. You know, like making sure that that environment is, once you've attracted them with digital, deliver on their expectation, and try and love developing a meaningful connection with that person, having a great consultation, something that Richard Kavanagh has been trying to pioneer to get going back in our industry again, and really making sure that it's like, it's not like, oh, yep, like the photo, great, I'll get mixed up, I'll be back. Like, come on, guys, like we need to reestablish a human element and connection, and that's a part of the analog revolution, which I would like you to be a part of if you'd agree.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
one of the things
No.
I'm going to do is assemble some artists, and we can get together and we can tour the country, and I'm sure we can get people to get in that can potentially sell it and back us and support it, because it's rebalancing and combining the analog and the digital. I'm not saying we should scrap it. That would be financial suicide
No,
in our
no, it's
businesses.
part of our life now. It's part
but
of our
just
life.
trying to make salon life sexy again and connection. Oh, look, I've got Ben booked in today. I love cutting his fade, even though it would be a quick job, no offense.
No, don't worry.
It's probably
just
not a good
leave the
example.
top.
Yeah,
Leave the top.
but you know what I mean? Like getting excited about who's coming in today. And the other thing I said, I can't imagine the stress of doing clients for the first time all day, every day. Always new people.
Oh man, just go back to when you first did how the crazy. Like so, I've got a pretty good memory, so I can take myself back to like just those when you're like, oh my god, like a blow dry was stressful. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I was like, you don't need to add anything up in it. It should be like, dude, when you go to university and you're learning, they're not making you document anything. You're just like, this is the time for learning. Like, you don't need to be building your law firm while you're in your second year at law. That'll come once you acquire the skills, then you do that. Like, we are unique in an industry that we kind of do that. When other people are learning, other industries are not necessarily putting the pressure on them to be adding that. And as you said, it's here to stay. But I think the bandwidth that people are allocating is potentially a bit more than you need to.
Yep, I agree.
Like, look, I've even contemplated, you know, I've aligned with a brand who I'm very, very grateful to and supporting me as an artist. And like, this relationship seems like it's going to be one for a very long time. They're very supportive of what I do, and I'm very grateful. But I'm even talking about, so I'm not educating necessarily for them this calendar year, but I am going to do some free classes, probably in Melbourne at this stage, for styling, part of the mentoring program. I'm going, and I know that it's different for some people, I am going to have a mobile phone ban in my class. Because I don't want my class to be learning in a look and learn through a screen. You know, we see it at concerts. People go to a concert and they're watching it through their phone.
It's crazy. And look, I know it sounded like two old blokes that, it could be forgiven if someone thinks we're a little bit bitter, but it's not about that. It's just about enjoying. We're going into a time where digital is going to be the most saturated in human history with AI and all this other stuff. And it's just like, guys, fall back in love with the analog, because there's just so many things that we're missing out on, the beautiful experiences that we're having with clients all the time, and just trying to inspire people to just put it away for a little bit. Like, minimize the distractions when you're in an education class, or unless it's an emergency, but that's never been any different. Like, when you've got an opportunity to do education, when you've made an investment in education, like just be selfish with your time, turn it on, do not disturb, and just watch. That's it. Yeah.
Watch it with your eyes, not through your phone. I mean, the other thing is, I always think about the analogy of a Hermes bag is made by hand. It's not made by a machine. It's not digital.
That's right.
Like, the most valuable artistic things are made by hand. That's real. Think about it like that. Like, put the phone.
100%, mate.
You can't detach from the digital world. That's impossible. I know you touched on before. Do we sound? I don't know. But both of us have actually kind of traveled the road, and all we're trying to say is like, hey, I've traveled this road. Let me share the experience with you that I've made mistakes. I would like to help to guide you to not potentially make them.
Just like you are with photo shoots, it's like, if you want to try and one of the things that I'm not so sure whether it's the digital saturation is being driven by the consumer or it's being driven by the companies, because I think there's a little bit of like companies are driving, obviously that there's a bit of both, but it's like try and find an opportunity to say with people, if you want to try and go down this path of establishing a digital income or having a side hustle, see it for a side hustle. But primarily to do that, you are going to need, and especially now, just use the awards as an example. If I'm going to go and compete against Ben Martin, if I know you're entering next year or this year, I'm not entering, because I'll just get schooled unless I'm prepared to be able to learn the skills to be able to compete. So if you want to compete in the digital space, it's going to require you to start with a solid foundation first. So don't forget digital. part of the analog revolution is before going down this path, you need to establish these particular skill sets first. And that's going to require you to completely shut out and block out all the white noise in the environment, focus, and then it's time to say, okay, you should be sharing this with people now because it deserves to be shared. Not that you're not worthy at the moment, but your work is beautiful and you're ready. Take the handcuffs off, and there's this less pressure, because what I've always said from the start, and what I've always said, if you want to have real influence, the rule must be, and I'm stealing this off Gary Vee, and he's right. I heard him say it about 8 years ago. You must share your skills openly without any expectation. That is what real influence is. Not I'm doing this because I want something back.
100%. 100%.
And that's what we do with education. That's why we share, because we want people to grow, and that's the only way we can grow. But I tell you what,
look, when it comes to those people in our industry that are successful on social media, I don't think that they started out with the intention of just being successful. I think they wanted to share something, and then they became successful because it was authentic.
And I never did it to attract clients. I did it to share my skills with other people, and that was it, whether they liked it or not. Some people said, oh, thanks so much for sharing this haircut. Did it on my client, and they rebooked, and I get a buzz out of that. Then someone tells you, go kill yourself, and it's like, yeah, whatever, lose their life, whatever. But that's the other thing, is like when you're putting young people with something that they love, their creative, their outlet, and you're making them put that online at an early age for judgment before it's been refined, I just think it's a recipe for disaster.
No, it is. I 100% agree.
I don't know that we're going to solve the world's problems today, though, man.
Oh, no, probably not, mate. Next week.
But you are. The invitation is to you. I think we'll catch up offline and we'll talk about joining the analog revolution, because I think it would be a very beautiful thing to do. But I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today, especially the stuff about your mental health. That was very special, and I really appreciate you sharing that. I know that if there's people listening to that, they will benefit, because I know there's a lot of people out there that struggle for many, many different reasons. And for someone as accomplished as you, Ben, who's seen the highs and lows of our industry and then come back out of the cauldron and said, you know what, I've learned from my dark time. I've had trouble in my personal life, trouble in my professional life. And the thing that I take away is your craft and your art is what's pulled you out and just given you a reason to keep moving forward. And that is something that should be celebrated.
Thanks very much, Adam. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on, man, and letting me share some of my experiences, and also, inviting me to cover this analog revolution, which I think is really important for our industry in the future.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, mate. Take care. Thanks, mate.
Mate, you're a champion. Thanks so much. That was amazing. Today's conversation wasn't intended to single any individual out, but to just raise awareness to cancel culture and a damaging effect it can have on people and their mental health. I ask everyone to understand that we're all are going to make mistakes time to time. Hell, I know I've made many. But remember, in the fallout, when someone puts their hands up and owns their mistake and seeks forgiveness, we should give it to them and be kind, because without mistakes, we don't grow. It's a part of our journey and it's a part of life. If you like this podcast, please make sure you subscribe and share it with someone you think may benefit from listening to it. And until next time, see you later.